Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I'm doing my July/June book haul. As you may have noticed, I didn't do a June book haul separately because I accumulated all of one book in June. That book was Second Born by Amy Bartol. This is about a young woman in a giant bureaucracy who decides she wants to change the system and she finds a romance 30 pages in. If you can't tell, I did not enjoy this book very much, but there's more in my wrap-up which I will link down below. Then in July I went a little bit crazy because I could actually buy books that I would read, well, I hope relatively soon, but we all know how that works out. Namely because I was in Minneapolis and there's a Barnes & Noble there. So I went, and with my graduation money, some of it anyway, I bought books, both new and used. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to keep the synopses as brief as possible. Let's go. One of the used I got was the 95 Theses of Martin Luther, kind of self-explanatory. I then finished the trilogy by Jonathan Stroud with Ptolemy's Gate, which I've been looking for several years and finally found it in a used bookstore in Duluth. I also found Earth by David Brin up there, which is apparently one of my uncle's favorite books of all time, and he has pretty good reading taste, so I decided I would get this for very cheap and read it. Then of course there's Barnes & Noble, as I've mentioned, and one of the ones I got there was a classic. I got Emma by Jane Austen. I did get 4 classics total because they were having that 2 for $10 promotion, so this is only one. Another of the classics I got was The Metamorphosis by Ovid. Again, I don't know anything about this except that I think Ovid is Roman, and by think I mean I'm 99.9% sure he is. The third classic is the Histories by Herodotus. I keep hearing his name, but I've never actually read his histories, so as much of a geek as this makes me, I am beyond excited to finally have these in my possession. And the last classic is The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. I know I have Les Mis, I might have this one already, but if I do, I don't know where it is. So for $5, you know, what the hey, I will get it again. And besides that, there's nothing wrong with having 2 copies. Oh yes, by the way, I don't know the plot of any of those, hence the reason I'm not actually saying them. Then I got The Memoirs of Cleopatra by Margaret George. I've actually been craving this one for several months now. This is clearly all about Cleopatra's life. It is a fictional work by Margaret George, who also wrote about Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, and Helen of Troy. I love her writing, and I'm extremely excited to dive into this chunk. And I got one basically entirely for the cover, and that is European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss. I just really thought the cover was beautiful, and it turns out this is the second in a series because obviously that had to happen eventually to me again. But this one is about women who have been told they're monsters or are monsters, last names such as Hyde, Jekyll, Frankenstein, that kind of thing, in the late 1800s. One of them gets kidnapped and they have to go find her. I then got From Unseen Fire by Cass Morris, which is set sometime in ancient Rome. It is a historical fantasy. Next, Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. In my 52-week challenge, this is the one for a celebrity memoir that I chose. I have a deep interest in South Africa, having been there, and also just wanting to branch out on my own knowledge of the world, so this seems like a good place to continue. Then I got The High Mountains of Portugal by Jan Martel. This, apparently, Jan Martel is the author of The Life of Pi, which I've never read in my life. I might own it though. I can't really find some of my books at this point. I don't think I own it. Anyway, this is where somebody goes into the mountains of Portugal, and I just liked the cover and thought it was, you know, kind of fun for $7. And then, because of Reagan over at Prue's project, I bought The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is a high fantasy, 1001 pages, no idea what it's about otherwise. Next I got a nonfiction at Zenith bookstore in Duluth, Minnesota. Really cute bookstore. They've got some really funny socks too, such as Go Away, I'm Introverting. But anyway, The Influence of Sea Power Upon History 1660 to 1783 by Alfred Thayer Mahan. My aunt, who was an AP geography teacher, said that this is actually still relevant to today, and I'm always interested in sea power. I think it's more relevant than we realize. So I'm excited to read this and figure out what this theory is. Next up is The Barefoot Queen by Ildefonso Falcones. Yep. I honestly have no idea what this is about. I just know that I have 2 of his books in Spanish, and I thought it would be fun to get this one in English, even though it's not one of the ones I have in Spanish, simply because I know the name of the author and it was cheap. Did I mention I have a slight book buying problem? Yeah. Then I also got When Dimple Met Rishi by Sanya Menon. This is a YA contemporary about a young Indian, well, Indian heritage anyway. I don't remember if she's Indian American or whatever. At any rate, her parents want her to go into an arranged marriage. She doesn't want to. She ends up meeting him, I think. I've heard good things about it, and it just sounds like one of 3 YA contemporaries that I might enjoy. It was also $4. Then I got Say You're One of Them by Akpan, which is a collection of stories from people around Africa. And again, this just sounded really interesting. It was cheap, so I decided to get it. A book you may have heard of lately is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I got this because I've heard nothing but good things, and historical fantasy. Continuing with popular, I got The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is about a movie star who's telling her life story to a journalist she handpicked. And then, just to scare myself out of my wits, probably, I got a book that I read in 5th grade which gave me nightmares for a week. House on Hackman's Hill by Joan Lowry Nixon. I finished this book faster than we were supposed to, and I just remember it literally gave me nightmares for a week. But again, with my 52-week challenge, there is a book that you read in your childhood, so I decided to give this one a go again. Another of my uncle's favorite books, sci-fi this time, Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 40th anniversary edition, and I think this cover is absolutely beautiful. But this has been on my list for about 3 months now, so I decided I would finally get it when I was at Barnes & Noble. And then the last book I got on recommendation from my aunt, and that is The Silk Roads, A New History of the World by Peter Frankman. This is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a new history based around the Silk Road. And it is quite a big book, but as you know, if you've been following me for even a couple of months, I've been craving nonfiction, and now that I don't have to study for the bar anymore, I can actually read it, which is thrilling beyond words. I am very excited to get to this, and also, this cover is just gorgeous. Those are all of the books I accumulated in June/July, by which I mean mostly July. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up down below, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button down below. As always, I leave my Goodreads linked in the down bar if you want to check it out. Let me know which of these books you've read or want to read down in the comments below. And until my next video, bye.